Don't.
Wait,
Okay.
let me make my point, and then I'll let you make your point. I think it's important to point out the CBO is not saying specifically those 4.8 million are engaging in fraud. They say many will lose coverage because of paperwork, red tape, or failing and falling short of the new rules. So just let me ask you directly.
Yeah, falling short of the new rules of what? Being an able-bodied person with no kids. So what you're gonna go do, man? What you gonna do? Go have some kids so you can keep your Medicaid? That would be pretty damn ignorant. But hey, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's some people out there that's dumb enough to do it.
Do you have any actual proof that these people are engaging in fraud? Millions of Americans, as you say.
This is very important distinction. Those 4.8 million people will not lose their Medicaid unless they choose to do so. I will go into any town hall in any district in America and explain what this is, and every single person will nod their heads and go, oh, that makes sense. You're telling me that you're going to require the able-bodied, these young men, for example, okay, to only work or volunteer in their community for 20 hours a week, and that's too cumbersome for them? I'm not buying it. The American people are not buying it. This is a new requirement. It should have been put in a long time ago. And the people who are complaining that these people are going to lose their coverage because they can't fulfill the paperwork, this is minor enforcement of this policy, and it follows common sense. When people work, when able-bodied young men work, it's good for them, for their dignity, their purpose, and it's good for the community they're in. If you can't find a job, then volunteer in your community for 20 hours and you will meet the requirement. That is a basic minimal standard.
Very quickly, because we're almost out of time, Mr. Speaker, do you have any actual evidence that these people that you were...
Remember, these guys are able-bodied, so you can't sit there and say, oh, well, what if they can't get up? What if they're in a wheelchair? We're not talking about them. They're not able-bodied. We're talking about the people who can get up, walk around, just like you and me.
...refer to are engaging in fraud.
Well, there is a tremendous amount of fraud in Medicaid. It's undisputed. Tens of billions of dollars every year are lost in fraud to Medicaid. So there's another category of people, 1.2 million, that are totally ineligible to be on the program. We also have evidence of people who are listed and enrolled in multiple programs in multiple states simultaneously, and they are cheating the system. I'm going to say this very clearly. Our legislation...
Damn, they getting like 4 or 5 checks from the government? Bruh. Like I said, we need to cut it off, and that's why these Dems are trying to hide. They're trying to hide that fraud once again, or that waste.
And preserves Medicaid, strengthens Medicaid for the people who actually need it and deserve it. And we're going to get rid of the fraud, waste, and abuse, and that is a long time overdue.
And some of what you are referring to refers to improper paperwork. But let's move on, because one of the other big issues in the big, beautiful bill is taxes. President Trump had actually, at one point, raised the idea of letting the tax rate on the wealthiest people go back to that 2017 rate. The House bill, though, does make the lower rate permanent. So, Mr. Speaker, why do millionaires need to keep that tax cut?
That's a Democrat talking point. You know, this is not giving tax cuts to millionaires. It's the opposite. The people in the tax bracket that you're referring to, many of them are small business owners. They are the people that provide the jobs in every community in America. They use pass-through taxation, and we don't get in the weeds. We don't have time to get into the complications of it. We are the.
You know, how about this? I'll correct it. Of able body in mind. So no, a person who got schizophrenia is still going to be on Medicaid, because they wouldn't be able to operate regularly in society. So yes, those guys will still be on Medicaid. The problem is, though, is some of these guys are gonna have to get tested again to see who gets to keep their Medicaid, because that schizophrenia, that one's hard to fake. But you know, these people with behavioral, disorders, or like bipolar, trust me, a lot of people are faking that. And depression and all that good stuff. Yeah, there's people who low-key bullshit in the system. And schizophrenia, that's something that's pretty hard to bullshit.
Party that reduces taxes for all Americans. And I'm telling you, the one big beautiful bill is geared for hardworking Americans. The biggest beneficiaries of this will be low and middle income Americans. That's what we did in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That's what we'll do again by extending those tax cuts in perpetuity and making them permanent. That was a major promise of the president on the campaign trail. It's a major promise of ours, and we are going to fulfill it. The Republican Party is doing right by the American people, and they're going to feel the effects of that soon.
And Mr. Speaker, just to be clear, I mean, this is not a Democratic talking point. I'm asking about something that President Trump himself.
Wrong. Like I said, man, I'm going to keep laying out. Remember, they said single. And now you're right. Single mom, able body. All right. The mom has an able body with no dependents. She got kids. she gets Medicaid because she has dependents.
Had floated the idea of it is estimated that if the bill becomes law, the top 10% of households would see an increase in resources, but the bottom 10% would see a decrease in resources. Why are you comfortable?
No, that's not. No, that's simply not. It's not. I'm not comfortable with that. It is not true. Look at the actual facts of the tax cuts that we're extending. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, again, from 2017, the people that benefited most from that were the lowest income Americans. It was households that made between $20,000, $30,000 a year annually. They had the biggest benefit from the TCJA. Also, the people that make $40,000 or less had their best tax benefits in over 40 years. Yeah. Go back and look at the statistics. So what we're doing right now is by making all those tax cuts permanent, we're preventing the largest tax increase in U.S. history. Kristen, if we don't get this bill passed, every American is going to receive the largest tax increase in the history of our country at the end of this year when the TCJA expires. Don't forget that. We have to extend it, and this is the vehicle to do it.
Bottom line, Mr. Speaker, you all had set a July 4th deadline to get all of this passed. Are you confident you can meet that July 4th deadline?
I mean, it's true. I mean, we haven't even drawn up on the month deadline. It ain't even like we still got more than a month left. Well, a few days outside of a month left. And we're making progress. It's already at the Senate. Now, like I said, the Republicans in the Senate want $6 trillion more. So they're kind of pulling teeth on that. We'll see how that progresses.
Yeah, they've always discounted us. I mean, I said I would do it out of the House before Memorial Day, and I was laughed at when I said that back early part of the year. But we beat it by 4 days, okay? We're going to get this done. The sooner the better, because all these extraordinary benefits that we're talking about have to happen as soon as possible. And I'm convinced that the Senate will do it, do the right thing, send it back to us. We're going to get it to the president's desk, and he's going to we're all going to have a glorious celebration on Independence Day by July 4th when he gets this signed into law.
All right. Well, we're going to be tracking it very closely. Speaker Mike Johnson, thank you so much for being here to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. Shout out Speaker Mike Johnson. Now let's get on to that man, Scott Bessent.
We begin today with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Good morning, and thank you for being here.
Morning, Margaret.
There's so much to get to. I want to start with China because
literally, I like to call him the financial supervillain that turned to the good side.
The defense secretary just said there's an imminent military threat from China to Taiwan. Days earlier, Secretary Rubio said he'd aggressively revoked Chinese student visas. On top of that, you have curbing exports to China. Trade talks, you said, with Beijing are stalled. And President Trump just accused China of violating an agreement and now says no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Ooh.
Are you intentionally escalating this standoff with Beijing?
Well, I don't think it's intentional.
No. Whoa. That's a wild way of asking that question. Are you intentionally no, we're not intentionally doing this. I mean, did you not just hear what Trump said? He said these guys are acting in bad faith, so we're reacting. This is not intentional. We're just going off the energy or off the good faith that they're showing, which is none. So we got to get real with them.
I think that what Secretary Hegseth did was remind everyone that during COVID, China was an unreliable partner. And what we are trying to do is to de-risk. We do not want to decouple, Margaret, but we do need to de-risk, as we saw during COVID, whether it was with semiconductors, medicines, the other products. We are in the process of de-risking.
Making the United States less reliant on China. But at the same time,
and the whole world. The whole world, because what China is doing is they are holding back products that are essential for the industrial supply chains of India, of Europe, and that is not what a reliable partner does.
So is that what specifically is President Trump saying when he says?
I mean, no, that's facts. Let's go back to that.
Of India, of Europe, the whole world, because what China is doing is they are holding back products that are essential for the industrial supply chains of India, of Europe, and
I don't think that's India's. To be quite honest with you guys, I don't think that's China's fault. Like I said, China's going through some crazy things right now, and you know what? Let's just get right into it, and we'll get back to my man Bessent, because I'm glad my man Bessent kind of brought this up, because this is kind of crucial on what's going on in China. Let me make sure I actually even have the video up.
That is not what a reliable partner does.
So is that like what specifically is President Trump saying when he says they're violating an agreement? Because it was the one
Like I said, I don't even think China can fulfill its agreements. Like one of their chemical plants just exploded. So if you're talking about y'all need some of these chemicals and plastics, I'm sorry, but I don't think China got y'all back on this right now. China's going through a lot. Like I said, $54 trillion in debt.
negotiated in Geneva
That's
earlier
tough.
this month. And what's the consequence for that?
Well, we will see what the consequences are. I'm confident that when President Trump and Party Chairman Xi have a call, that this will be ironed out. So, but the fact that they are withholding some of the products that they agreed to release during our agreement, maybe it's a glitch in the Chinese system. Maybe it's intentional. We'll see after the president speaks with party chairman.
That's critical minerals, rare earths. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
So the president has said a few times that he was going.
And people are saying that this might be an aggression towards India because, well, China already chose a side, and China is on Pakistan's side. So, and also, India is also stealing Apple away from China, and that's hurting China a lot. So, trust me, these guys aren't really feeling too, they don't got really too much goodwill for our people out there in India right now. I would say, in the terms of who's China's worst enemy, it's us at number 1 and India now at number 2. And maybe 3 would probably be, I don't know, like Japan or something.
To speak to President Xi, but he hasn't since before the inauguration. Beijing keeps denying that there was any contact. Do you have anything scheduled?
I believe we'll see something very soon, Margaret.
Do you have a conversation with your counterpart or Lutnick with his counterpart at the commerce level?
Well, I think we're going to let the two principals have a conversation, and then everything will stem from that.
JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon spoke this week at an economic forum, and he gave this read on Beijing.
I just got back from China last week. They're not scared, folks. This notion they're going to come bow to America, I wouldn't count on that. And when they have a problem, they put 100,000 engineers on it, and they've been preparing for this for years.
Have you underestimated the Chinese state's backbone here?
No, we've accurately assessed the Chinese state backbone. The problem is China don't release its real numbers, and we're about to go ahead and get into that for you guys. So, hey, man, make sure y'all like and subscribe to the channel, man. We do this every night. We like to get into the details, into the weeds of things. So, let's go.
A prolonged housing crisis in China having a knock-on effect on the rest of the economy.
There's a road that speaks volumes about the state of the Chinese economy. A multi-billion yuan expressway, one side unfinished and abandoned, a symbol of a system that's stuttering.
I know that China is doing very poorly right now.
China could be facing an extended economic downturn.
China's economy is struggling because Chinese citizens are just not spending. In China, household spending makes up less than 40%.
That's the main concern, because I'm like, hold on, we're supposed to open up their economy. That's the one thing we were asked for. All right, let's open up our economy to the 1.4 perceived billion people in China. Now, if these people have a low consumer consumption rate of 38%, when the average country is at least 50%, then there's a problem. Like, even if they open up their economy, their people don't have enough to spend. Which, I mean, here's the crazy thing. Like, you think the wealth disparity in America is crazy? Go to China. You'll be amazed.
% of GDP. In the US, it's 70%. This low spending makes China dependent on trade, government spending, and investment. And all of those three are at risk right now. The CCP is getting so desperate that it's subsidizing things like microwaves and dishwashers just to get people to spend money. But it's not working. And as we'll cover later in this video, this spending problem is just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath it lies a $10 trillion debt crisis, a real estate bubble, and an economic model built on a house of cards. These problems could trigger a collapse the CCP isn't ready for. And it all starts with low spending. The big reason for this is that Chinese citizens believe in saving more than spending. For every 100 yuan they earn, they save 32. This is also called the household savings rate. Recently, total household savings in China hit a record high of 140 trillion yuan, or about 19 trillion US dollars. China as a whole has more money sitting in bank accounts than the entire country earns in a year. That's the polar opposite of America, where people believe in spending and then spending some more.
Yep.
The U.S. household savings.
Because money in circulation is how good economies run. When you hold money and keep money stagnant, that's when money low-key damn near turns against you. As they say, money is like a river and it must keep flowing. And if it gets still, then it floods over and then it kills all the plants and everybody in the distance. You kind of get what I'm saying? I know, a bit dramatic, but you get it.
This rate varies from month to month, but right now it's about 4%. So for every $100 earned, only $4 goes into a savings account. And for decades, the American model has worked pretty well. If everyone spends more, there's more demand and the economy grows. This unshakable consumer market is one of the reasons why America makes up a third of global consumption, despite only having 4% of the global population. But China just can't manage to copy this model. One of the reasons for this is a historical one. In recent memory, China has suffered famines, widespread poverty combined with terrible government overreach. All thanks to this guy, Mao Zedong. That kind of suffering has had an impact on people's trust in the future and on how much they save. Elderly people still remember the time when Mao Zedong just took people's assets away like it was nothing. During his so-called Great Leap Forward, up to 55 million people died due to food shortages. And that was only about 65 years ago. By the way, famines are not uncommon in Chinese history. In the 20th century alone, there have been 7. That's why Chinese culture says people should save their money, because it can help you to survive such a crisis. One of the quotes of Confucius, a key figure in Chinese culture, is that when prosperity comes, do not use all of it. Prosperity for China only arrived about 3 decades ago, when Deng Xiaoping opened up the economy. Nowadays, most people in China receive a paycheck every month, and they're supposed to go and buy goods and services with this. But understandably, there's not a lot of trust in the new system yet, and they're right. As we'll cover later, Xi Jinping is already undoing everything that helped the Chinese economy grow. Now, the CCP's 50-cent army definitely isn't going to like this one, so it's entirely up to you to help us spread the truth. If you can please take a second and hit that like and subscribe button down below, it helps out our work tremendously. Thank you. It's not the only reason for saving, though, especially for young people who were born during this time of prosperity. As it turns out, they also don't spend a lot. One of the reasons is that saving is the best way to get ahead in Chinese society. People's social status depends on how much they own. Having a home in a major city like Beijing, Shanghai, or Shenzhen is pretty much the biggest financial achievement you can dream of in China. And if you manage to buy multiple properties, then you've really made it. Also, the cultural norm in China is that you need to own a home before you can get married. You can't just rent it. The only problem is that properties in Chinese cities have gotten ridiculously expensive. In Shanghai, house prices are 50 times annual average income. In Shenzhen, Guangzhou, and Beijing, it's more than 30 times income. Pretty crazy, right? Needless to say, most Chinese people can't afford this because the payments on the mortgage would be too high. So they choose to slowly save up money one day to be able to buy, which is one of the reasons for this high savings rate even among young people. On top of this housing issue, having some extra money saved up in a bank account is necessary in China. Despite the CCP preaching about its socialist ideas, social services in China are actually not that great. The pension system is one of the biggest examples of this. If you're lucky, you're part of the urban pension system where you get the payout of $460. That's still below the cost of living in the cities, though.
Yeah.
And 2/3 of people.
If you want to now, just to kind of fast forward on the point, though, these guys are barely able to afford all this. Their entire country is being crushed on debt, and they got, I guess, major companies shutting down. And then, like I said, they also deal with a chemical plant explosion about about a week, about 5 days ago. I believe it was on the 26th of May. But all right, now let's get back to this man Besant. But this had to go on the whole point about China because everybody want to kiss China's ass like they're not an American or something. Wild, ain't it?
They're not scared, folks. There's notion they're going to come bow to America. I wouldn't count on that. And when they have a problem, they put 100,000 engineers on it, and they've been preparing for this for years.
Have you underestimated the Chinese state's backbone here?
Again, Margaret, I hope it doesn't come to that.
No, nobody's underestimated the ruthlessness of the Chinese government. Like, we understand that, and we know they're ready to make their people starve. The problem is, no matter how much you make your people starve, you can't starve your economy because your economy is just going to break, and then that's it. Then your people are really going to be starving. So they can make their people starve, but can your economy do that? I don't think so.
And Jamie's a great banker. I know him well, but I would vociferously disagree with that assessment, that the laws of economics and gravity apply to the Chinese economy and the Chinese system just like everyone else.
And that's what I'm saying. They kind of like want to honestly scapegoat on, oh, well, the Chinese people, they make their people do this, they make their people do that. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool and all. Or, they starve their people. And I mean, that's effed up, but that's cool and all. But here's the problem, though. Their economy is sinking. Yeah, so just because these guys have all the engineers in the world, just because these guys have all the people in the world, does not protect them from a failing economy, from a massive debt crisis that they have. So you guys can sit here and talk about, oh, well, they can make their people starve and everybody will be okay. Doesn't matter. If the economy collapsed, and it doesn't matter if they make their people starve or not. They're going to be starving now anyway. So, I mean, I don't even know what the point of that argument is.
But when you were last here in March, we were trying to gauge what the impact of the standoff with China and with the tariffs on the rest of the world would do for American consumers here at home. At that time, you told us you were going to appoint an affordability czar and council to figure out. 5, you said.
And look, here's the thing, guys. In communist history, in communist government history, every time a communist government is doing good, they are proud to show their numbers. It is only when they're doing bad is when they start hiding numbers, because remember, people want to see China as a good investment opportunity. So why would they put out bad numbers and people start, abandoning China because they might see a looming debt crisis or a looming collapse? Why would they do that? So, like I said, you're kind of playing into this whole propaganda just so you can say, oh, Trump bad or Trump wrong. And I would ask you guys to leave Trump out of this and think logically about it here.
Or 8 areas where there will be some, pain for working class Americans. Where are you anticipating price increases?
Well, thus far,
actually, and where are we anticipating price increases? I would tell her this: in markets that are in a monopoly or a closer monopoly and oligopoly. So there's only a few companies to compete against. Those guys are more able to increase their prices due to lack of competition. A monopoly, I mean, come on now, they set the price regardless. And now in these guys who are actually working in a more, competitive market, like most people, they are going to be reluctant to raise their prices because there's too much competition. They can lose out to the next guy that has a more innovative way of eating the tariffs to where they don't have to pass on the price to the people, or they just eat it straight to the profit margin because they don't want to lose sales over, tariffs.
We wanted to make sure that there aren't price increases, Margaret, and thus far there have been no price increases. Everything has been alarmist, that the inflation numbers are actually dropping. We saw the first drop of inflation in 4 years. The inflation numbers last week, they were very pro-consumer.
Right. But you listen to earnings calls just like we do. You know what Walmart's saying, what Best Buy's saying, and what Target are saying.
But Margaret, I also know what Home Depot and Amazon are saying. I know what the South China Morning Post wrote within the past 24 hours, that 65% of the tariffs will likely be eaten by the Chinese producers.
True. And that's also true as well. So it's not even like Americans are taking the full brunt of it. We're damn near making these guys drop their prices. So yes, like I said, tariffs can also fall back on the supplier. So yes, the guy in imports pays it. So I mean, the American company pays the tariff cost to get the price in here. But this is the way they can avoid it. They can pretty much tell these guys, look, I'm only paying this price. I'm not paying nothing more. So it's either you guys are going to make it cheaper so you can get this sale and make this ship leave the port, or I'm gonna go elsewhere. Like, what are we gonna do here? Or I'll just wait until the tariffs drop. What are we gonna do? And Chinese companies can't afford that. They just cannot afford that type of hold up on production or on sales. So yes, some of these guys are gonna go ahead and eat the tariffs and be like, look, we'll go ahead and drop our prices 15-20%, and we'll work it from there.
Are there 5 or 8 areas that you have identified, as you said back in March, where American consumers will be able to have lower prices or should be warned of higher prices?
Well, a lot of it's already working its way through the system. So we've seen a substantial decrease in gasoline and energy prices. So that's down 20% year over year. We've seen the food prices go down, these notorious egg prices. Through the good work of President Trump and Secretary Rollins, egg prices have collapsed. So we're seeing more and more.
And it's so crazy because, like I said, it's like you Dems only see tariffs working in one way. when there's been multiple companies that came out and said, yeah, we're going to take it to the profit margin. Now, remember, first you guys said it was inflationary, and inflation went down. You guys dropped that argument. Now you're saying there's going to be a price passed on to the people, and there's been multiple companies that said, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and take it to the profit margin, what proves that it doesn't just automatically go to the consumer. Now, and I already gave up on, and I gave you guys the ground on, well, if it's an oligopoly or a monopoly type of market or an industry, then yeah, they're more likely to raise their prices due to less competition. So there you go.
And what we want to do is even that out across all sections of the economy. So inflation has been very tame. Consumer earnings were up 0.8% last month, which is a gigantic increase for 1 month. So real earnings minus low inflation is great for the American people, and that's what we're seeing.
But because when you met with the Chinese earlier this month and you went down from the 145% tariff down to about, it's like 30%. 30% is not nothing, that tax on goods coming in here. Retailers are warning of price hikes. Well, when you go back to school shopping, things are going to cost more.
But Margaret, some are and some aren't. Home Depot and Amazon said they're not. And
Home Depot and Amazon aren't where you go for your back to school shopping. When you buy your jeans.
Lie again. Actually, no. If you actually look at Amazon right now, which I was recently shopping on, all the prices are down. And that's what I'm saying, because Amazon is honestly what's going to keep your prices down, guys. Well, believe it or not, due to the high competition on Amazon of a lot of these products, how you can get one product from like 8 different companies, 20, 25, 100 different companies. That's what's keeping your prices honestly low. It's that competition. Because if you go on Amazon right now, like I was noticing too. I'm like, bro, they're talking about tariffs is going to raise prices. I'm over here seeing deals on top of deals. They're over here cutting prices on Amazon. And yes, you can buy back to school stuff on Amazon. Yes, you can buy jeans on Amazon. So what's she talking about? Like, sweetheart, I don't know, man. Maybe she big ball and she's like, man, look, I only go to Chanel, man, Tiffany, to get my stuff. I don't know about y'all, but Amazon don't fit. Maybe that's the vibe she's coming off of, guys.
Is great for the American people, and that's what we're seeing.
But because when you met with the Chinese earlier this month and you went down from the 145% tariff down to about, it's like 30%. 30% is not nothing, that tax on goods coming in here. Retailers are warning of price hikes. Well, when you go back to school shopping, things are going to cost more.
But Margaret, some are and some aren't. Home Depot and Amazon said they're not. And
Home Depot and Amazon aren't where you go for your back to school shopping. When you buy your jeans, when you buy your crayons, when you buy all those things that parents are going to be looking.
I don't know about you, but I do it online at Amazon. This isn't an advertisement for Amazon. And guess where most of the Halloween costumes in America get bought? At Home Depot. So that's just not right. There's a wide aperture here of different companies are doing different things. They are making decisions based on their customers, what they think they're able to pass along to their customers, what they want to do to keep their customers. And I was in the investment business for 35 years, Margaret, and I will tell you, earnings calls, they have to give the worst case scenario, because if they haven't and something bad happens, then they'll be sued.
Yeah. So pretty much Amazon and Walmart all had to come out there and say, look, Scott, look, I know you told us to eat the tariffs and we're going to do that, but you got to understand, dog, we kind of got to give out the worst case scenario so we don't get sued, okay? And that's just pretty much it. And you guys can look into that if you want to, but that's just the fact of the matter. That's the reason why these guys give this grim forecast, because they have no choice. They can't sit there and give their investors or their stockholders the most glorious corporate story you've never heard, or the corporate projection you've ever heard. No, they got to sit there and give them a doomsday scenario, and also, something that could work out, so they don't get sued and their stockholders be like, bro, you didn't sold me the best story ever, and now it's not working at all. Like, yeah, you're going to court. You lied to me. You didn't give me no other scenario where this could fail. So that, yeah, you lied.
It's not always the worst case. It's the most probable case.
No. They have to give the worst case.
So Walmart, there was just a piece published with the conservative strategist, Karl Rove. I'm not asking about politics because he is a political strategist, but he went in on the math here. And he points out that Walmart has a profit margin of less than 3%. He says, if it does what Mr. Trump says, eat the tariffs, it can't break even. It can't absorb the cost of imported pair of kids' jeans with a 46% tariff on Vietnam, a 37% tariff for Bangladesh, or 32% tariff on sneakers from Indonesia. Other companies are in the same pickle. So should companies cut back on the amount of goods they have on their shelves or just on their profitability?
That's a decision company by company, Margaret. And I had a long discussion with Doug.
Some will just order less. Some will go ahead and take it to the profit margin. All depends on the demand of that product and how much they usually make off it. Like I said, each company is different. As I stated too, when I said, oh, it all depends on, oligopoly, monopoly, or what type of competition their market is in, depending if prices are going to raise. And honestly, like Amazon, yeah, that's going to keep a lot of companies from raising their prices because Amazon has such high competition, especially when it comes to electronics. I'll tell you that right now. Or, workout gear and all that good stuff. All your usual. There's like products on Amazon that right now that got like 80 different sellers and they're all competing for your dollar. So that's why they got one that's got 29% off. You got one that got 30. You damn near got one that got 80% off for 2 days only.
I'm the CEO of Walmart, and they're going to do what's right for them.
But for consumers, the reality is there will either be less inventory or things at higher prices or both.
When we were here in March, you said there was going to be big inflation. There hasn't been any inflation. Actually, the inflation numbers are the best in 4 years. So why don't we stop trying to say this could happen and wait and see what does happen?
Exactly.
Just trying to gauge for people planning ahead here. One of the things the president said on Friday is that he's going to double the tariffs on steel and aluminum up to 50% effective June the 4th. How much will that impact the construction industry?
I think.
Well, actually, the construction industry is going to shift their demand to American companies, and there you go.
I was with the president at the U.S. Steel plant in Pittsburgh on Friday, and I will tell you that the president has reignited the steel industry here in America. And back to the earlier statements on national security, there are national security priorities here for having a strong steel industry.
But do you have a prediction on how much it's going to impact the construction industry, for example?
Well, I have a prediction on how much it's going to impact the steel industry, and we'll see. There are a lot of elasticities that this is a very complicated ecosystem.
I mean, yeah, quite honestly. And here's the thing, though, people trying to say that we don't have the type. I mean, y'all use that same thing for production of oil, which is honestly a valid argument. But when it comes to steel, no. Actually, us buying Chinese steel is actually pretty detrimental because Chinese always water down their steel. So buying from American steel companies is only going to improve, these infrastructures and, whatever else they need for steel. It's only going to make it more higher quality buying it from America.
So is it going to impact the construction industry? Maybe, but it's going to impact the steel industry in a great way. The steel workers, were left on the side of the road after the China shock, and now they're back. They are Trump supporters. And when I tell you that it was magic in the arena, or it was actually at the steel plant that night, that these hardworking Americans know their jobs are secure, there's going to be capital investment, and the number of jobs is going to be grown around the country, whether it's in Pittsburgh, whether it's in Arkansas, whether it's in Alabama.
Yeah, I said there's going to be huge manufacturing boom due to the fact that all these companies are coming here and they're rolling back regulations. So these projects can get started a lot sooner. So, I mean, these guys want to talk about where are the jobs? I mean, yes, there'll be factory jobs. Yes, there'll be technician jobs. Yes, there'll be automation jobs. And yes, there will be construction jobs. I mean, there you go. There you go. Right there, guys. Jobs across the board. I mean, shoot, there'll even be financing jobs. All types of jobs will be, utilized here.
I want to ask you about this big tax bill that worked through the House is going to the Senate next. In it is a increase or suspension to the debt limit that you need delivered on by mid-July. How close of a brush with default could this be, given how massive some of the Senate changes are expected to be to the other parts of the bill?
Well, first of all, Margaret, I will say the United States of America is never going to default. That is never going to happen. That we are on the warning track and we will never hit the wall.
You have more wiggle room if they don't deliver this by mid-July? I mean, how hard of a date is this?
We don't give out the X date because we use that to move the bill forward.
Sometimes deadlines help force action, as you know, particularly in this town, sir. That's why I'm asking. The president did say he expects pretty significant.
Yeah, but here's a problem though. It's like mainstream media keep asking for a deadline, negotiation deadlines, and all that. I'm just like, we're negotiation deals, right? So if I give you a deadline, then our adversaries can just wait it out. So why would I tell you that? Why do you keep wanting us to blow the cover? Why do you keep wanting us to give away the sauce, give away the negotiation details? Like, do you not want us to win? Like, you just want us to give our secrets or give the negotiation plan out to the entire world so they can all react to it. Like, what's wrong with you guys?
Changes to this.
Bro, that's like playing chess and you're just telling the guy, yo, every move. Like, yeah, I'm gonna make this move, that move, and that move. Like, you're telling this man 5 moves ahead. So what? He can counter you? Like, really?
Bill, though, so that affects the timing of it moving. What would you like Republican lawmakers to keep? What would you like them to alter?
Again, that's going to be the Senate's decision. Leader Thrun, who I've worked closely with during this process, has been doing a fantastic job. And Margaret, I'll point out, everyone said that Speaker Johnson would not be able to get this bill out of the House with his slim majority. He got it out. Leader Thune has a bigger majority, and this is with President Trump's leadership. So
there's no red lines for you in there of just don't touch this. You can, tinker with that.
Well, I think that they're not necessarily my red lines. The president has his campaign promises that he wants to fulfill for working Americans. So it's no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of auto loans for American-made automobiles.
So those have to stay in.
Those have to stay in.
JP Morgan's Diamond also predicted a debt market crisis. Cracks in the bond market was what he said. You are considering easing some regulations, you've said, for the big banks.
Ah, man, the Democrats holding water for the bankers, the people that control the corporate elites, the bankers. I mean, the main people they want to go for tax and all that good stuff. They are now holding water for. Like I said, man, it's a strange day in America. It's a strange year, really, in American politics.
How do you avoid that bond market crisis he's predicting spreading and really causing concern, particularly with all of the worries about American debt right now?
So again, I've known Jamie a long time, and for his entire career, he's made predictions like this. Fortunately, none of them have come true. That's why he's a banker. A great.
Hey, nah, you know what I like about Scott Bessent? This man is hilarious, bro. Every time they want to talk about these billionaires and all that, like, oh, he's the CEO of this and that, or the chairman of this and that. And I remember he's talking about the chairman of Goldman Sachs. He's like, well, John. I'm like, hey, this man is a gangster with it when it comes to the financial world. He's like, no, I know these billionaires by first name. So yeah, John don't know what he's talking about. I was like, bro, this man Bessent is hilarious. Every time he's like, well, this corporate billionaire, and this man goes out and calls him by their first name, like you can call this guy up right now or something.
Banker, he tries to look around the corner. One of the reasons I'm sitting here talking to you today and not at home watching your show is that I was concerned about the level of debt. So the deficit this year is going to be lower than the deficit last year. And in 2 years, it will be lower again. We are going to bring the deficit down slowly. We didn't get here in 1 year. We didn't get here in 1 year, and this has been a long process. So the goal is to bring it down over the next 4 years, leave the country in great shape in 2028.
You know that the Speaker of the House estimates this is going to add $4 to $5 trillion over the next 10 years, and there's that debt limit increase.
Well, again, Margaret, that's CBO scoring.
That's the Speaker of the House.
No.
He said it last Sunday on
Unpleasant gift. Like, dog, I know you disagree with me a lot, but yeah, that's kind of my point. And now I see you're actually a true Democrat if you can actually sit there and make that statement like, yo, yeah, American businesses ship their factory to China for cheap labor as they never wanted to pay American a living wage, and now they are complaining. That is a real liberal statement. That's a real Democrat statement right there. That's what I'm looking for most of y'all. Y'all supposed to be on damn near Trump's side on this. You could be like, I disagree with Trump on everything. But this right here, going against the corporate elites, going against the American businesses that benefit from us, but took their jobs to another place for cheaper labor. It's like, yeah. And the only way to make these guys do what we want is tariffs. Raising taxes on the rich is not going to get the results we want from these guys. But tariffs, blocking these guys from the great market, which is the USA, that will get them acting how we want them to. It's about making them work for us instead of us working for them every single time.
On this program.
He said that's the CBO scoring. Let
No, he said that sounds right.
Let me tell you what's not included in there, what can't be scored. So we're taking in substantial tariff income right now. So their estimates that could be another $2 trillion. That we are pushing through savings. So my estimate is that could be up to another 100 billion a year. So over the 10-year window, that could be $1 trillion. President has a prescription drug plan with the pharmaceutical companies that could substantially push down costs for prescription drugs, and that could be another $1 trillion. So there's the 4.
Okay.
Treasury